thank you for joining me on my quest to not misunderstand Catholicism. Now, of course, the reason for this quest, or my inspiration behind it, is a very old, like more than 10-year-old television show that I rewatched recently, where it was on a Catholic television channel, and the show had audience participation, and one of the members of the audience commented that the missionaries from my church misunderstand Catholicism and Catholics. And I don't want to misunderstand anyone. So, in my quest to find YouTube videos of Catholics explaining the misconceptions people have, correcting the misconceptions people have, I found ThatCatholicGamer. Do you mean a Catholic gamer? Did we already talk about a Catholic gamer? Well, she's not just a Catholic gamer, she's that Catholic gamer. What Catholic gamer are you talking about? Catholic Gamer, that Catholic Gamer is the name of her channel. I gotta give her credit there for having a creative title. Alright, so the first thing is, do Catholics pray to Mary? And she brought the saints into it also. She said, no, Catholics don't pray to Mary. They ask for intercession, which means they are asking Mary and the saints to pray for them. I wish this was interactive with her, because, ooh, you know what, I should go back and ask her. What definition of prayer is she using? If you ask me what prayer means, and you know every other language, word in English language, so I don't need to use like only words that little children would understand. I would say praying is communicating, speaking with a real being who is not there with you and hears you, but not with technology. Of course, technology doesn't count as a prayer. And that being has power to do things. You know, a bird up in the sky, I don't believe it has power, so I wouldn't say, I don't pray to them anyway, but I wouldn't define it as prayer if somebody talks to a bird that's 10,000 feet up in the sky. If they believe that bird has power, then I would define it as that. Okay, so she described prayer. She described Catholics talking to Mary and the saints, who are real beings, and believing they have power, and believing they hear them. So she disproved herself. She quoted a verse from the Bible I've heard other Catholics quote to explain why they believe they should pray to the saints, or why they should talk to the saints who are real beings but not there, and who hear them with supernatural abilities, not technology, and communicate and have power. So, what's the definition of prayer we're using when you say prayer? Alright, but Revelation chapter 5, I've heard this quoted before, and that Catholic Gamer, not just a Catholic Gamer, but that one. She quoted this one. Let's see. And when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the saints. I guess it matters how you define saint, and how you think of this is affected by what you think saint means. What was meant by the writer is affected by what the writer thought saint meant. Now, Catholics, they're not doing mental gymnastics to come to the conclusion that they do with that verse, if the definition of saint is a being who has been officially designated a saint by the Catholic Church. But that's not the definition I think of when I read the word saint in the New Testament, and so I come to different conclusions. My understanding of what the writers of the New Testament meant when they said saint was saint, a follower. Everyone who's truly following God is a saint. And they meant the members of the church, because if you're not going to join God's church and make covenants with Him, there's something lacking in your following of Him. But you could always upgrade and make those changes. So if this means that, then it's not talking about the prayers of a few people designated with the name saint by the Catholic Church. It's talking about everyone on earth is really following God. Those prayers there, that's my prayers. That's Mitt Romney's prayers. Not that I'm proud of some of his recent actions, but he's one example of a famous member of the church. Okay, so I think I dealt with that subject thoroughly. The Catholic Church is not opposed to modern science, so she was tackling the misconception that the Catholic Church is against science. Well, some of the more recent popes have been, because they've been chanting the religion of evolutionism, despite the fact that there's scientists, atheist scientists, who see holes in it, and scientists who don't have a religious reason to doubt that are doubting it. But, okay, so the Catholic Church has tons of money and does nothing with it. I did not have that misconception. The Catholic Church, they definitely do help people. Just because they didn't send me a big check does not mean they're not helping people. It's ridiculous to, try to nitpick over whether they're spending enough of their money on charity when they are definitely spending their money, some of it helping poor people. 4. Okay. This is one that got me a little disturbed. 4, she did not refute any misconception. She quoted the Pope. When people quote the Pope about something, how is it a misconception if people quote the Pope? Specifically, Pope Bergoglio recently said, "We need to build bridges, not walls," denouncing nations engaging in self-defense, reasonable, non-lethal self-defense options. This current Pope has denounced the concept of nations and why? I don't see any biblical reason for that. Nations exist. It's okay for people to defend themselves. It's okay for nations to defend themselves. It's okay for nations to say, "We're full. No, you don't get to come in." It's okay for nations to control who comes in so the culture does not change. There's nothing wrong with a nation not committing cultural suicide by bringing in, more people than they have and having a big change in the culture. That she did not refute that the Vatican has walls, so the current Pope is a hypocrite until he tears down those walls. There's no two ways about it. I don't understand how she could doubt. Even if she agrees with him about what nations' laws should be about immigration, how can you accuse people of perpetuating a misconception when she didn't refute that the Vatican has walls? She praised the walls. And then she said the walls aren't to keep people out. Really? What are the walls for then? She described the reason for the walls was because of pirates, and I'm confused what year she said the pirates were, because I'm sure she said 1846. I listened to it twice, so I get the right year. 1846 is when the walls were built. And then she said 1,173 years ago the walls were built. It was because of Saracen pirates, those are Muslim-believing pirates, that raided the Vatican, and that's when they built those big walls that do keep people out, that surround Pope Bergoglio, who's telling other countries to not have walls. Okay, so enough about that. 5. The Pope is infallible. She quoted a catechism, and it sounds like the correct thing that Catholics believe. Well, correct is defining what they actually believe. Not correct is, you can say correct if you're just identifying what a group actually believes and not agree with them. So they look at the words that the Pope gives, especially in an ecumenical council. Maybe there's some of the College of the Cardinals involved with that. That's what's infallible. They do not claim the popes are sinless. She quoted some statistics from this one pope went to confession every week. This other pope went to confession every day. Okay, then video 2 of her videos started off with something that's not a misconception. Her video should have been titled Misconceptions and Explanations. Because when you're answering a question that asks why something is done, there's no misconception there unless the thing isn't done, but the thing is done that they were asking about. Now, if somebody made an accusation, you do this or that because of this reason, right? Now that's a misconception. But the question was, for number 6 of her list, why is Mass such a workout? So, I don't go to a lot of Catholic Masses, but I've been to them, and apparently if you go to a Catholic Mass, you're going to stand up and sit down, and stand up and sit down, and kneel, and do something else. And she explained why they do that, or why she thinks that's good. Alright, 7 was indulgences. This is interesting. The accusation or misconception she was dealing with here is that Catholics believe they can buy their forgiveness for sins, also called indulgences. Now, she did say that Catholics used to believe that. They used to believe if you gave an indulgence, you were paying for your forgiveness or somebody else's forgiveness, or for somebody to get out of purgatory early or get less punishment in purgatory. So Catholics did believe that in the past. She said that when she was clarifying this misconception. She said in 1557 the practice of indulgences was outlawed. Good to know. Now we know. 1557, according to ThatCatholicGamer, the practice of selling and buying indulgences was outlawed. She claimed that they were not sold for forgiveness because the money went to different charities. I think that is an unimportant point as to whether somebody was buying forgiveness or believed they were buying forgiveness. If they gave to that charity, or poor person, or whatever it was, because they believed they would get forgiveness for that, or their relative in purgatory would get forgiveness for that. It doesn't matter if the money went somewhere other than directly to purgatory or the devil or God directly. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. If what matters is what they believed was going to happen when they were handing the money over. Okay. 8. They waste money on elaborate churches. Some Catholic churches are very big and beautiful. I don't see how that's a problem. The Catholic Church does engage in a lot of help for poor people. So she pointed out that some of the ornateness of Catholic churches has been and is, maybe more so in the past, but maybe it still is helpful, to people who are illiterate. When there were high rates of illiteracy hundreds of years ago, it would help somebody to learn the Catholic teachings. If you walk into a Catholic cathedral and you see in the stained glass important scripture stories, religious stories, or if the statues were of characters in the Bible, important religious characters. That's an interesting way to look at it and a reasonable explanation. Number 9 was Catholics want to relive the crucifixion. She didn't really do a good job of refuting that. I did not think Catholics wanted to relive the crucifixion. She did not refute it. Maybe people accuse them of that because of how they do the Eucharist or something like that. How they say Mass or what they do in their Mass. But I've not been under that, misunderstanding of thinking that Catholics want to relive the crucifixion and get some kind of a joy out of thinking about Jesus in pain. 10 was not about a misconception. If tradition is spelled with a capital T or a lowercase t, it can have a different meaning when a Catholic uses that word. If they use it with a capital T, that means like official doctrines from the church, the ecumenical councils, and things like that. Lowercase t is just less official things from the Catholic Church. Alright, thank you for watching and joining me on this quest. You have a good day.